look for the link as always. The class. I think here's the live. All right. I'll share the link. Perfect. That's cool. We can start then. Martin, do you want to go first?
Sure, I was working on different things. Like I said yesterday, a way to simplify the special rules for encoding decoding for those fields like the base gas fee, and now it should also work recursively. So if you have a container that has another container inside with one of the special rules, you don't have to do anything anymore. I also did work on a fix for a change on the README on the docs. So the way it was structured, I felt like it was a bit mixed. For example, like on the first bullet point, maybe there was a book, and then afterwards there was like a YouTube video of 10 minutes with an introduction on the subject. So I tried to reorder it a little bit from like easy to difficult, or from like introductory to deeper. I also added some links that Fede asked me to add, and I also like changed a little bit the structure to have like a specific section for the consensus part, which so it's not mixed with the rest of like the Ethereum just general concepts, because that's what we really care about. So yeah, feel free to take a look and say if you like it or not. Then, well, I added some other things, and I created some issues, some good for beginners and others, like, yeah, the thing I said yesterday about some of the refactors we want to do on the SSD side of things. So that's it. I'm gonna keep working on this, and hopefully today is the day where I will be able to start with the thing Mega has been working on the topics and gossip. I haven't been able to get into that. That's it for me.
All right, perfect. Paul, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I've been mainly focusing during the last 2 days on the things that we were discussing a little bit yesterday. So I finalized the PR about Beacon API, and so I've also like tried to read a little bit more on it and see a little bit more about its implementation, because I want to have just a good understanding and an expertise of the areas where I work in, to be sure that I implement the right things, that we do it in the right orders. So mainly that. After I've been discussing with you the CLI implementation, I just wanted to see if I could potentially implement a boilerplate of CLI that we could extend slowly, because we will definitely need the CLI like every other node. But it's just like, for example, implement the first method, and then slowly, like for example, when we have like the new other things that are implemented in the client, we can improve the boilerplate. But as you said, I think it comes a little bit further down the line. So firstly, we can have the internal functions working, and then when we want to call them, or when we want to start like to have people using it, we can just add the CLI, and we just like make the
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be able to use the node. I think that it's not a blocker now. To have the functionality that we have today, which is just bringing up the server and being able to pass a couple of API requests, we can already do that with just a make target. We don't need a CLI yet. In the future, and I'm not talking about like the end of the project. I'm talking about maybe in a week or two, we will definitely start having the need for a bit more advanced usage. I think there are plenty of ways to solve passing parameters for now. I think that like having it hard coded as a first approach is good. Not because hard coding is good; it's never good. But having like a value that you already know that will work is a good first step um, before being able to fine tune it. And then once we have that, definitely we can go with the CLI or with the environmental variables or something like that. But I wouldn't do like the interaction first if we don't have if we don't know if like we if we don't know how it will be used. Um, but yeah, very soon. Like don't worry about that. It will come around. and you can do it when it's the time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah. No, no,
if
no
like
worries about it.
if that's something that you would like to work on, don't worry, you will get the chance to do that definitely.
No, it's very cool. I'm not worrying, but it's very cool to have your feedback, and I agree with your vision of you and Martin about the roadmap. And so mainly the things that I will focus on to finish quickly is the addition of the internal function for checkpoint sync. So I've been reading the code of mainly two other clients, which are Lodestar and Lighthouse, to see a little bit like how do they do checkpoint sync, because yeah, like there's a way of doing it, and there's like different endpoints to that you should be able to call when you want to do checkpoint sync, and more especially it's a debug endpoint, which enables you to get the latest finalized checkpoint. So I will slowly implement that. Right now, I'm having problems. I don't know why with the a little bit like I said to Martin yesterday. Like it still doesn't want. I'm trying to send some octet stream, and it tells me it's application JSON. I don't really understand why. I've tried on multiple different like things like Postman and do it directly from the browser, and then trying another app, and every time it tells me that it's application JSON. When I even when I put the accept and the content type headers to octet stream, and I verify everything. So I'm not really sure yet, but I will continue researching and implementing the internet function, and then after also like focusing on trying to make work the validation between the EL and the CL. So that's the two things I will mainly focus on, which is the checkpoint and the validation to try to send the payload to the EL. But as I said, we will need to maybe coordinate with Thomas uh, to discuss a little bit of how do we get the blocks from the lib P2P, and then after how do we deserialize it to be able to pass them to the EL.
Yeah, I think that I mean I fully support having that discussion, but I think that if you have the SSZ structure, or like the Elixir structure that is already deserialized, even if you don't interact with the networking layer, you can already try sending that through the engine API to see if a different like execution client can validate that or not. I do support like talking with Tomas and getting some info on, hey, do you have like a concrete block that arrived from the gossip sub so that we can use that instead of inventing one? That would be amazing. But if we don't have that, we can still like make one up with the structure that we already have, and then just send it to the execution client to see if that works. This is by no means that like the priority thing to do now. Like I think that what you're doing on the checkpoint sync is great, but yeah, after we get all of the like the beacon API endpoints that you coded merged, I think that will become a bit of a priority, just to be able to test if the whole thing that you coded is working or if it needs any adjustment, because you did like a lot of stuff, which is great, but at some point we need to start like making sure that that all of the pieces connect, especially with talking with the execution client, which can be tricky. But yeah, that's all great. I'm very happy that you made such progress with all of those features.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And maybe Thomas G can answer this question, which is potentially we could take some blocks from the tests, and I could try to send them to the execution layer. Do you think that would be feasible?
Right now, the receiving blocks from Gossip Sub is really like it takes a lot of time to receive a message from our peers. For some reason, we already discussed with Tomas. It may be because we aren't responding to some of the messages our peers send us. So it might not be that easy. We could try to
Sorry to
like
interrupt.
send a request for a block,
Sorry to
but
interrupt, Thomas,
yeah.
but do you like? On the one hand, I do understand that it's not feasible to have like the node listening yet to like, and having a reasonable throughput of blocks. But did you ever get at least one block that you were able to decompress, or is that something
I
that
only
didn't happen
tried
yet?
with I only tried with attestations, and I'll try it again, but I don't think I'm receiving blocks.
Okay, then I think that answers the question for now, and we have to like we didn't receive any blocks yet from the networking side. So uh, when we fix that, we can have like real examples, and for now we can just like have the structure and just pass it to the execution payload to see if it's valid. I think that the trickiest part there will probably be the signature. If that's the, I don't remember if the signature is in the valid execution payload or not.
No,
Or
it's like I think maybe I wasn't clear. My question was just,
oh,
we,
sorry.
we have some tests, right? That we just downloaded. That we when you run make spec tests, right?
Oh
You have
yeah,
that are loaded.
yeah, we do have.
I'm just curious if we
But
cannot take an execution payload, and I can just potentially take the execution payload from these tests and send it to the execution clients to see if.
yeah, I think I saw some test vectors that were like based on a real execution block. I'll check if I can find them, and I'll send them to you through Telegram, like the name of the file.
Okay, great. I don't have anything else. Thank you very much.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, that can work. Tomas, you want to go next?
Yeah. Well, yesterday I continue. Well, we talked with Tomas about the whole networking component. He gave me some pointers. I was addressing them. I'm like polishing some minor details of the PR. I'll put it to review, and then I'll continue with. Uh, well, I'll let it like run in the background just to test if we are receiving some blocks. I managed to uh, by reducing the Broadway batching. I think I was receiving more messages. Um, yeah, it was waiting for a batch of 10, and that really hid the fact that we were already receiving some messages from our peers. Well, apart from that, I'll continue work on the request response part, implementing some of the callbacks our peers um, might expect us to respond to. And well, that's it. I already went through the repo, checking on some PRs and answering some questions, leaving some reviews with that.
Okay, perfect. I'll go next then. I don't have many updates, unfortunately. I spent some time yesterday discussing the technical side with Tomas. I also added some issues and reviewed some PRs. I'm finishing reviewing the one from Paul about the Beacon API, which already seems great. And I spent some time reading the Lighthouse code base regarding storage, and I'm almost finished with that. So I hopefully have something for today at the end of the day to share with all of you guys. Uh, and yeah, I'm focusing on storage right now and a little bit on the presentation that we have to. We have the EPF presentation today, hopefully in like maybe half an hour or something like that. So I was just like rereading what we wrote last week, just to make sure that yeah that we that I had everything in mind, because when you live like a week between writing something and actually doing the presentation, you start forgetting stuff. So I was focusing a little bit on that, and I'll keep you updated on the storage side of things. Yeah, I think that I don't have many more updates as of myself. Do we have any final comments or questions?
Yeah, wanted to ask just about the presentation.
Sorry, Paul, can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear it very well.
Wanted to ask about the presentation.
Of
Is
course, yeah.
it
Go
today?
ahead. I think it's today. I mean, there's another round of project presentations in this weekly today, and they moved us from like we were already in the list last week, but there were plenty of presentations and they were very long, so they didn't have time for all of us. and they like listed the presentations that were left last week for the next one, and ours was also moved. So I would guess that we would have priority, like maybe we are the third of or fourth to present today.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then yeah, great. Let's see if we can go through this week and make a super presentation.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Paul. All right. I think that's it. Thank you all for joining today, and see you all tomorrow.